Abby, how do you back up your computer or your phone or anything? How do you back things up?
I mean, that's such a big question. I don't even know how to answer it. I
Like your
feel like
phone, do
my phone, I
mhm.
do the thing that the iPhone tells me to do when it says
Okay.
your iPhone hasn't been backed up. I follow the instructions. Your iPhone hasn't been backed up in 7 days. Do you want to do a backup now? And I guess I am backing it up to iCloud,
Okay, cool.
but
So you're doing
it's
all in the
something
cloud.
that's, yeah, it stresses me out so much
Mm.
because I feel like my backup situation is all over the place. What's your, like, can
Okay.
you tell me what your
I,
situation is?
I spent hours. Okay, so in the book, we talk about consolidating. First, I'll talk external because, in the past, I was taught backup on an external, do those regular backups. Apple has Time Machine, Microsoft had something. And I had at least 4 or 5 hard drives that I had whittled down to like what I thought was a manageable level. And then when I started digging into them over a weekend, I realized it wasn't manageable. There were hundreds of backups, and I made the decision to create one master folder with all the things that were on the backups that mattered: photos, videos, documents, old things, consolidated into one folder, deleted all of my backups. And I mean, I went through, and one of them, I'm not kidding, I'd been backing up since 2008 on this hard drive. It had over 5 million files from backups, and it took around 6.5 hours to complete the deletion of that hard drive. It was insane. Like, I couldn't believe it finished at like 2 in the morning. And I realized that those backups, the Time Machine, wasn't nearly as helpful and useful because it had old folders and old things that were just broken and didn't work. And managing it seemed like a mess. And I didn't like having all the stuff backed up in different places. It had old stuff from work and old books that I've written and stuff. So I really had to consolidate the hell out of it to get it down. And after spending that time doing it, I now feel like I have the most solid backup plan. If someone were to click, they'd see main backup, they'd see documents, photos, old work things, photos of dogs. Got a lot of those.
But
Photos of family.
are you backing up everything to that one backup now?
Well,
So your
what I
phone
st-
is being
yeah,
backed up there, your emails being backed up there, your documents are being backed up there. How is it all working?
what I realized was the computer, and I started making this change years ago, was backing up a computer. Everything I'm doing is pretty much in the cloud now. A lot of the stuff is either it'll be in, I have G Drive is a big place, Dropbox when it comes to like big files, iCloud or iTunes, iPhoto, one of the I's, and I had them backed up in a certain place. But again, accessing them, they just seemed like they were languishing. It felt like I had a storage facility I was never visiting. It was just some place where I just had all this crap that I could never do anything with. And I realized that that's just unmanageable. And it's unmanageable if anyone else had to view it. And I also don't know where half the stuff is. I want to see if I have 500 photos of the same trip, maybe I just need three. So, but what I needed to do first was consolidate it down into a manageable system. So the externals are literally me dragging the folders to that external, not using any program. Because a lot of times when I have to rebuild the computer, I don't care. I could download Microsoft Word again. I could download Zoom again. I could download Chrome again. It's not like I'm losing anything that really matters to me. So if you
So
use your computer that way,
are you saying that you're backing up everything that you have in the cloud on an external hard drive?
I'm doing a backup, the external, all the files I have on my computer, and those I'll have backed up there. But then I'll also have a management of where I'm keeping things. So I know Dropbox for me is more of a, because I don't want to pay. I have a bunch of Dropboxes. I just want to have like, I'm like, if I hit a certain limit on Dropbox and they're like, you have to pay, I'm like, okay, time to delete stuff because I don't want to be tied to that. I'm already paying like $1 a month to back up my phone. That's what I do. Because the phone I think is different because you can lose your phone easily and it's got a lot of stuff on there. And the iCloud backup is actually decent. If you've ever had it, restoring it is very simple. Computers aren't the same anymore. And a lot of the times I'm thinking, what would matter? What would I lose that I can't get back? That's the main goal with backing up. And a lot of times these backups, it's programs. I mean, there was Excel folder I had that had probably like 5,000 documents in it. I haven't, from all the backups and all the read copies. I don't need that. No one needs that. So
Right. I
in
mean,
reality,
I have to say, I'm overwhelmed even having this conversation. I'm sure that everybody or many people are overwhelmed
yes,
even listening to this right now.
I
Are
was
like, I
overwhelmed.
do not want to deal with this. I know I need to, but I don't want to deal with it. And I feel like the hard part, at least for me, is just in figuring out what I'm currently doing to back things
Yes.
up. I know I am backing things up because I pay, you know, a lot of different services for backing up because I'm so paranoid about not backing things up. I even have an external hard drive, but I haven't really used it. But I think just
Yeah.
figuring out, I think step one is just figuring out what you're currently
Yeah.
where you're currently using services, and then figuring out, are you using backups with those services? Are you paying to back up
Yeah.
information with those services? And then what you're talking about, which I think is really important, is then thinking about, can you consolidate
Yep.
into one place? And then if you want to go the extra step, backing up with something in external, like
Hmm.
what kind of terabyte, external hard
I
drive do
go
you have?
I go for, I had some older ones that are 500 gig when they were expensive, but then they got cheaper, so I bought some of those. But then usually like a terabyte, they're tiny. They're the size of a phone. And when I realized the majority of what I back up is around 100 gig. It's not that much because that's the stuff that if I lost, I couldn't recover. And I do have photos every, you think photos are really important, documents somewhat important, old when it comes to the documents, the ones you write, but the ones that were important are like, you know, forms that were sent around. If people keep their tax returns, how do you password protect that, which you can, and encrypting. And I just thought the thing that worried me is I always think of how much stuff do you have in this world and where is it? So right now, if you were to say, usually if you have one place you stay, but then you might have stuff at your parents' house, and you might have stuff at a sibling's house, and you might have stuff in a storage facility, and you might have stuff in an office. And then you start thinking, how do I, it's all over the place. How do you get it down to like one or two places? Right now that you have a house, you're like, well, cool. You could move all that stuff and say everything I have that matters is now in this house. And I feel for digital, knowing that you have it in all these different places and you're being charged for it, it seems like you're paying for something that you don't really need. You're paying to store memories. And there's a way to get those memories down to a compact place. And when I look at files from 20 years ago, I could still access these photos because I can't recover
Right.
those photos if I've made them digital or if they were only digital to begin with. A lot of times, most of my documentation, and that's where we say with Everplans, putting tax returns and things, yeah, that makes sense. But all the
Right.
other stuff,
It, it's
documents, you
really
don't want to.
confusing. It's really confusing. I mean, I think you have to be really gung ho and up for the
Yeah.
challenge if you're gonna do what you're talking about. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, when I deal with my parents, my mom a few months ago said she wanted me my help in doing this, really just kind
Hmm.
of getting all of her different services organized. She didn't really know what she was using for what, and she wanted one place. And we kind of unpacked this. I didn't realize this is what she was talking about, but she wanted one place where she could her save her emails
Hmm.
that she wanted to save, and important documents that were in those emails and the emails themselves. And she also wanted to save notes, and she also wanted to save photos, and she also wanted to save files and calendar appointments. And I was like, well, so those are different services, or there are different things for those different services, but at least we can try to consolidate so that you're
Hmm.
not using, Microsoft for certain things and your
Yes.
Outlook for certain things, and you're using GCal for other things and
Yes.
Apple Calendar for other things.
Yes.
You've got to pick your service
Yes.
and then try to use that service for that purpose, and at least to try to make things easier for yourself. I feel like everybody needs to figure out their own system.
Yeah. But I think, do you know what's interesting? We're in a weird middle ground, though, because our parents' generation didn't have anything digital. The younger generation, everything's digital. Like you wouldn't even think of having external because why? Like, why would you need thumb drives? Because everything is backed up cloud based or on a service. So people would go to Instagram and be like, "Here's where all my photos are in my Instagram account. I don't need them on my phone." Or people that back up that way they're willing to pay $10 a month to back up, 500 gig worth of photos or videos or whatever they're doing. And for us, we had that moment where photos were emailed around and saved to our computers, and documents were saved to our computers, and trusting in that digital cloud part, it did get us to start saying, wow, I like this. So if someone loved Dropbox right out of the gate, which was the first really online storage provider, they're going to say, I'm a Dropbox person. But then you start seeing, well, I'm using Gmail and I'm using G Drive and I'm using Google Calendar. And I don't really like Apple Notes, but they have Google Keep. So all of a sudden you're like, well, Google's kind of won me over in all these places. So I stopped using Apple Notes for the most part. I stopped using things like Evernote. I'm like, I could do it all here because that's all in the same spot. And what you said is true. It's like, how do you first start by saying, if I'm using online services, I like backup. We've said in the book, and Adam says this often, you don't want like one single point of failure. So for me, I think the externals are like, if everything melts down, like there's no more internet, okay, I'll have my photos. But when it comes to online, I think, backing up Google, backing up Apple. If you have Amazon Prime, you could back up all your photos for free if you're paying for that. And as the prices have gone up on Amazon Prime from like when it used to be $70, now it's like $130 a year. For a household, it's still fine. Free shipping, you get all those movies, like some of their shows. You could listen to some of their books. You could get free photo storage. So you think, okay,
Totally.
but those are all the areas where I'm like, okay, I do this backup and say, these are the areas where the photos and videos are and documents. But then I also realized some of my digital stuff is letting go, because I realized a lot of these old things that I wrote 15, 20, 30 years ago, I don't care. But I just feel like I don't want to get rid of them. So for
But
me, it was
now you're
minimizing it.
stressing me out. I mean, I don't know, Gene. I'm sitting
That's what I
here
live
like
for.
panicking because I did have an
I
external hard
live to
drive,
stress people out.
and
And
I
then I
had the
unstress
external
them.
hard. Well, but I had the external hard drive,
But you're
and
cloud-based.
we
You're
just
cloud-based. You
no,
are
but we just
cloud-based.
no, but we had this one issue where
Okay.
for somehow I had all of these photos in iCloud, and my daughter, when my daughter Winnie, for some reason, her entire first year is missing from my iCloud. So when iCloud reboots onto a new phone,
Yeah.
every time this happens, and when I go onto the iCloud service just to even hunt this stuff down, the whole first year of her life, for some reason, is missing. And so what I determined was that it was on this one, somehow it's on this one computer locally.
Hmm.
And before we moved from New York to DC, we uploaded all of that important stuff
Yeah.
onto a external hard drive. And now I'm panicking because we moved and I have literally no idea where that external hard drive is. I
It's
I don't know where it is.
it's
So
it's
now I
downstairs
don't know.
in the
I have to
closet.
go.
You're gonna leave, and because what I was saying about like
Ben,
not, yeah, find Winnie's first year.
where is that hard drive?
See, but this is what's good, because even talking about this, you're realizing, okay, I want to find it, and you will find it, and you'll have it, because I'm sure Ben has it like under lock and key. And I realized that when I'm using some of these services, or when I'm looking back when I looked at these backups, for me, having 10 years worth of computer backups wasn't useful. I'm not going to restore a computer to like 5 years ago. So for me, I did say, if I had to rebuild a computer, I'm willing to do it. I think for most people, if you're doing backups for iCloud or whatever they use on Microsoft or the Chromebook, do it. Like if they say, you plug in your hard drive and it says run backup now, do it. For me, I just didn't I felt like all those old backups just seemed unnecessary and confusing for me and for anyone else. Because even as I'm clicking through it, I just don't feel like it's a good system. It feels old, it feels antiquated, and I don't think they're ever going to update it because they want people on the cloud. So you're kind of stuck with this old timey thing. But if your computer melts down, you just plug that hard drive in, say restore, and it'll rebuild it as is. The phone is much more convenient. That iCloud, I've seen that in action when people lose their phone. They get a new phone, connect it, and their phone's exactly as it was the moment they lost it. So I think
Right.
for phones, it's good. For computers, it's interesting to know in the future if your kids are even going to care. They're like, a computer is just an easier way for me to look at my phone. and I
Right.
don't use it like that. Chromebooks kind of went in that direction.
I think of it the other way. The phone is an easier way to look at my
Yeah,
computer.
I was going to say it's a bigger way, and I had a keyboard and that stuff. You're right. See, that shows the age difference.
Mm-hmm. It shows how much younger I am than you.
And if Adam was on this, he would be like, okay, here's how I back up. He'd open up his server room and be like, I have every year choreographed. And it does take time. But I realized I had put a bad show on streaming that I was meaning to watch for a while. There's 3 seasons. I let it play. It didn't require much of my attention. And I just was on my computers, plugging hard drives in, seeing what was on it, breaking them down, saying, okay, I know what's here. I know what my master collection is. Some of those files are never going to change. Most of the stuff is in the cloud and I know where it is. But the next step for me, because I also have it very complicated because I have so many backups for so many years. The next step though is now looking at those folders, I can go through and start actually looking at photos and things that I want to keep and I don't. I have it all there. It's like having a box of photos and saying, now it's time. I need this many photos. Is this video of my friend at work? Can I just put that on YouTube and send him a link and then it's out of my life? Because that's another thing. Most of the things I have, it's more like, oh, I'd like to send this to my friend. And the moment I do it, it's no longer valuable to me. I'm like, I don't need to keep it after that. So it's a way of separating yourself from these digital, assets and a digital life we've had for so long, without feeling, guilty for getting rid of it. Adam doesn't throw away anything. I think you are fine with having it online. As long as you know it's there, you're happy. And for me, I'm like, I kind of want to get a full grasp over it. And since we're probably like the biggest examples, having worked in digital for so long, of people that have so many backups. I mean, I have computers that I have the old Mac Clambook laptop that still works. So yeah, we could do that. So, Angela, you got enough, right? Perfect.
I also just started to my computer just started to.
That's fine.
I lost
I think
the
we
last
got
1 minute. You broke up.
But
for
I think
me.
we got everything there.
Okay.